Riley Loos won Winter Cup, Frederick Richard debuted a new uniform, and we cover what exactly went down in Cottubs. For those new here, I'm Kensley, the host of Neutral Deductions, a podcast all about men's gymnastics, and I'm joined by Christian Marsh this week. This is episode 59, where we recap gymnastics from January 20th through 23.
This is the Neutral Deductions podcast, men's gymnastic news, coverage, and analysis.
So welcome, Christian. Thank you so much for joining me again on the podcast.
Oh, no, of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's always lovely to listen to what you put out, and to be a part of it's even better.
I'm so excited for what we're going to talk about today, and I think we would be remiss if we didn't start with maybe the biggest controversy of the weekend, which was Frederick's uniform. So if you've been hiding under a rock, Frederick decided to debut a new uniform. He came out with a video and said he hated the way the old leotard or kit fit. He felt like it was outdated. He said he was bullied a lot as a child about his uniform, and so he wanted to do something new and innovative. So I originally first heard about this new leotard back in January, and I had heard that it was going to be a little bit of a looser fit and that it was going to receive some deductions, but that was all I was told. So then this past week we got some clues from some of his videos and little sort of snapshots of what we were going to see, and the gymternet lost their mind. So Christian, what was your initial reaction when you first saw this new uniform?
I don't prefer baggier clothing, so that was my first thing. I was like, oh, the jersey's kind of baggy and the shorts baggier as well than I would typically prefer. And then I was pretty quickly struck by how similar it looked to just a basketball uniform, which is, what it is at that point. But yeah, I don't think that's the direction I would have gone in were I to attempt to change the uniform. But the bagginess and then its similarity to basketball were the two most apparent things I saw.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions because what I kept hearing from the way Frederick was talking about it was it's going to be completely new and totally innovative. And when I think of sports uniforms, I feel like you're able to know what sport that athlete plays or participates in just based off of their uniform. And when I look at this, I'm like, oh, you're a basketball player. And there's nothing about it that screams to me gymnastics. It really does look like an exact replica. And I think one of the things I was really confused about is I felt like he had said, I don't like how tight the pants are. And then he wore tights, which are tighter than regular gymnastics pants. And I was very confused by this because I was like, well, which is it? And also, day one of the competition, they're really, really tight, compression style pants. And when he was going to floor and vault, I was like, is he having to run to the bathroom to take them off? I just don't, I mean, you could speak better to this, but I just don't know how logistically that functions.
Yeah, so the times I've worn leggings or whatever underneath my pants, it's usually the winter because it's cold, and I wear compression shorts, and then I wear the leggings, and then I put my comp shorts over them, because otherwise just the leggings themselves would not leave a whole lot of room for modesty. So I would have to imagine he was probably running to the bathroom, or either that or facing away from the crowd and stepping into his briefs. When he was talking about uncomfortability at first, I thought he was referring to the singlet, and depending on the brand of singlets, they're boy cut differently.
Okay.
One of my actually favorite things when I got to college was I didn't realize that the tanks were going to be upgraded like that. And so when I got my first, in this case, I believe we're a turn team. It's designed differently for your sensitive bits, and it is infinitely more comfortable than anything I had worn before then. In some other tanks of different brands, even in college and post college, are not cut the same way. So I totally see the singlet itself being uncomfortable. Pommel horse pants, I not only find comfortable, but also think they look good. It seems to be the consensus with the people I've talked to as well. Most of my teammates actually practice usually shirtless and either in comp shorts or palm horse pants.
Interesting. Yeah, the whole idea of bringing something new and innovative or something more comfortable, I think that that's something that should be praised. Certainly, we saw it with the German women as they felt that they were uncomfortable in the like bathing suit style leotard and they preferred having a longer pant. And I think having an option where the athlete is able to feel more comfortable for whatever reason, whether it's just the way their body is designed or for religious reasons. I think anyone should be able to have that option. I think where I feel this outfit or maybe the marketing of this outfit maybe missed the mark was one, it didn't seem particularly innovative to me. It just seemed like a copy of a basketball uniform. And two, I felt like it distracted from the line of the gymnastics. Like the shorts were loose enough that they were kind of flying around the knee. And so when you're looking for that knee deduction, it felt like it was a little bit harder to see. And so I'm curious to see, right, the first innovation of anything is rarely what someone will end up landing on, right? There's always room for growth. And I'm curious to see if he can take the feedback in a way to design something a little bit different that still provides that comfortability with something that's maybe a little bit more aesthetically pleasing for
Yeah, I think.
gymnastics as a sport.
Yeah, excuse me. I think like a sleeveless compression tank could have been nicer up top, and then like I really like the competition shorts, so I might be I think I'm biased on that, but I definitely see what you're talking about in terms of like length and bagginess for body line. I'd probably agree.
Yeah, well, all of that aside, we'll get into a little bit about how Frederick did later, but first I want to talk about the live stream that we got. So we got a live stream that was extremely exciting. Neither Christian or I were able to make it on site this year. So grateful we had a live stream, grateful that it was free. Disappointing that there was no commentary. I understand that maybe USA Gymnastics couldn't afford bringing in someone like Sam Pejek or John Roethlisberger or Tim Daggett or whatnot. But there are less experienced commentators who are still excellent. Like I would say some of my favorite are Christian Marsh here. Brandon Briones of Stanford is excellent. That I feel like maybe would not have been quite as expensive and who would have been able to provide a little bit more storytelling because I found the competition a little bland. How did you feel about it?
Oh, I agree. The lack of like a commentator became pretty clear pretty quickly because every now and then there are like lulls between routines, and I was like listening along to whatever song was playing in the background of the gym. And so I would have appreciated some commentary there. I of course would have jumped at the opportunity had they reached out to me. That would have been awesome, like a dream come true type deal. So I would definitely prefer some commentary the next time if possible, even if it does come from someone less experienced.
Yeah, I think there are people who commentate for Verdius who are just getting into it, who some of them are excellent and provide really interesting tidbits and background information. And I know when Scott Bregman was at USA Gymnastics, he brought in originally Evan and Sam to start commentating, and neither of them had had a lot of commentary experience. So it is kind of in the history of USA Gymnastics to provide a platform for less experienced people while not bringing maybe having the budget for the big guns. And it's just something, an improvement I would like to see for next year. But let's go ahead and dive right into day one of the competition. So we got started off early. Cam Nelson did his famous floor routine with both triples. I don't know if you saw this. So he actually did his triple tuck first, not his triple pike. So I was like, oh, he's not going to do his routine with both triples in it. And then he did his triple pike as the second pass, and his head was like this far from the ground. And I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? How did he go for it? Did you see his Instagram post about why he ended up doing it this way?
Yeah, he said he messed up his steps on his first pass. So his fallback was, I guess, to just do a triple tuck, as you do. And then when he was in the corner, his coach was like, go for it. And so he took a deep breath and just did.
It is one of the most absurd things I have ever heard in gymnastics. Like, I just messed up my steps and like whipped out a triple back. Just like for clarity's sake, at the Olympic Games, only one athlete did a floor routine with a triple back in it. Luke.
Yeah, no.
That was it. Like that's how rare and hard the skill is. And he just like casually did it even though he messed up his steps.
Yeah, Cameron's crazy. I do not understand. You got to have a screw loose, and he has it, and he has it just right. It is incredible to watch.
Yeah, so he did overall a really good job and ended up, I believe, sitting in second place after day one on floor routine. One of the other things I was really surprised but pleasantly surprised to see was the amount of athletes doing 2 vaults. So in my preview, I had kind of said, oh, I think Cam Nelson is actually going to probably automatically make national team because he's the only one who ever does 2 vaults. He'll be champion. He's got a great floor set. They'll be able to send him into a World Cup. And I think 4 different guys showed up with 2 different vaults. Was that surprising to you at all?
It was. I did not know so many people had been training 2 vaults, but I was like super excited to see it. And also one of the clearest things ever is like when people start doing hand doubles on double fronts. It's like I feel like it's like the go-to second vault. So it was cool to like see people pushing that a bit. It was encouraging. I like the bigger vaults. I like the flipping vaults. So it was cool to see.
Yeah, and there were a couple people debuting new vaults or harder vaults. Forgive me if I have forgotten, but I don't know that I had seen Fred do the handspring double front before. I've forgotten if he did. So I was like, oh my gosh, he's doing a new vault, and he's tried a couple different vaults over the years. Like he's tried doing the handspring double front and the Dragolescu, and he has the cos 1.5 and like all these different things. And so I think that this vault is new for him, or maybe one that he doesn't train super often. And that was kind of evident in the performance of the vault. He was a little bit under rotated, ended up having to take this giant step to the side. But that was, for me, encouraging to see, maybe looking for that upgrade or maybe looking to make vault finals in the future.
Absolutely. He did the front handspring 1.5 twist when Michigan was at Springfield. And that was the first time I had seen him do that. And so this was an upgrade from even then, and that was only a couple weeks ago. So okay. I assume he's probably building up to like a front handspring Randy, because he's been pushing for those 5.6, or formerly 5.6, those. So now 5.2. So like the Dragolescu, the triple fulls, now front handspring Randy. So I assume he's moving towards that area, because that was like one of the starkest differences in all around finals when he stuck the 2.5. And then Daiki Hashimoto stuck triple full, and Jake Jarman stuck a 3.5.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the places that overall the U.S. has been weaker. And in 2023, they had actually built a lot of difficulty on vault. And then at the 2024 Olympics, they ended up putting up 2 5.2 vaults. And then, of course, Asher's Risek Wong, which was, very good. But it is a place that I think the U.S. is just leaving tense on the table, because it's not an event that gets hit particularly hard when it comes to E-score. And yeah, if we can get more of those formerly 5.6 vaults back into our lineup, or into the U.S. lineup, I think that that's going to go a long way for making sure that they can retain a spot on the medal podium in 2028. I do want to talk about one of the scary things that ended up happening at the competition. So Ian Sandoval of Illinois was on still rings, and I am still a little unclear on exactly what happened and how he got injured. Were you able to see that, or did you get any more information about his fall?
Yeah, so my teammate Zachary Patrick was competing, and what he said was that he slipped on a dismount and landed on his head neck area.
Yeah, I know it was really scary. Gymnastics Now was reporting that he was not moving and had to be spine boarded, and they were able to get him to the hospital pretty quickly. And of course, thank goodness that he is okay and he has not been severely injured. We got that update from his coach, Daniel Ribeiro, but that was very scary news. You never want to hear about anyone being spine boarded off of a competition floor, for sure. In terms of beautiful things that happened at this competition, like things that just really stood out to you on day one, for me, it was Danila Lakin's lines and form. So Danila is an up-and-coming junior. He's going to be going to the German team in DTB and competing for the USA there. I his line, it's what perfection is. Every time I watch him, I just think like, God, could he get any better? I don't think so. And he's only like 16 or 17. And so he is one of the ones that is heavily to watch on the US team. When you think of like, okay, can men bring artistry back into artistic gymnastics? That's what I think of when I see his form on the competition floor.
His gymnastics is really pretty.
Was there anything that really stood out to you, like as a stellar event, a stellar routine, a stellar position on floor?
Yeah, Alex Dieb's rings routine was awesome. I really liked it. Yeah, I don't believe I've seen this exact routine from him before. And so he starts with this uprise invert, and the invert was gorgeous, like jaw-droppingly so. I feel like previously China had like a monopoly on good inverts, as in they are the only ones who did good ones. And then Asher was getting really close. Asher's invert has improved significantly. And Diab hopped up there, and it literally was like Lu Young beautiful, like the reigning Olympics champion. So I was really impressed with that. And then he not only does he do this gorgeous invert, he then bounces into a Maltese, super rare skill. It's called like a Jochev.
Okay.
Very difficult. And then back kip malt, which is another very difficult skill that like no one does except for the Diabs. I'm pretty sure he and his brother both did one. I've tried it and I do not understand the push down. And he does it so well. So opening with those like strong like ease back to back like that was really impressive. And I like had seen all the work he had done in the off season.
Yeah, I will say the one other piece of gymnastics that I just really loved from day one was, and really throughout the weekend, was Nardi Brady, who is another one of those junior athletes. For those of you not watching the YouTube video, Christian is like fist bumping in the background. I actually saw him at Beach Blast earlier this year. I was not familiar with him, and I saw him on rings, and I was like, holy crap. Who is this kid? Like, he is going places. And they're like, oh, that's Nardi. Like, he's from New Mexico. I'm like, no one comes from New Mexico and is good at gymnastics. It's not totally true. But, it's not a state that you think of. It's not like Texas where you're like, oh, yeah, all the good kids come from Texas. And he was stunning here. Was Yurchenko triple? Is that what we saw from him?
Yeah, that kid is raw. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, Yurchenko triple on vault, like sturdy. It is very good. And then he comes back with a 2.5, like Cosmatsu entry 2.5 twist. I mean, gorgeous. I think he's one of the best vaulters in the country. And I say that like it's my opinion, but he won vault at the end. So I don't know how.
And he's a junior. He beat all of the seniors.
And well deserved. He showed up and showed out.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, the final category for day one that we're going to talk about, was there anything weird that happened? So I swear this is not a Frederick hate podcast. Like, I went to Michigan, go blue. Like I had a lot of questions about this meet. So, right, everyone knows about this famous scale that they're having to implement on floor, and some people do it really well. Some people kind of don't do it very well. And his skill was fine, but his transition was the weirdest piece of men's gymnastics I think I have ever witnessed. So he goes scale, and then he like squats down, like almost like he's about to do a wolf turn, and then goes like straight into a plancher Maltese. I was like, what is he doing? It like actually makes me giggle. I was just like, why not do like a back tuck into like Shushanova into planche, or like a front roll? Like, I don't know, like, can you explain some maybe other creative ways that you could transition out of that scale into a planche that maybe was a little bit more aesthetically pleasing?
I feel like you could keep the leg up from the scale, forward roll, and then pop into your planche. I think that could work. I
Okay.
mean, personally, I just don't think I would have done them connected like that. I see like the train of thought for sure, where he was like, "Oh, I'm already kind of leaning forward, so I'm just gonna fall into my planche." And Fred is like a pretty steezy gymnast. Like his gymnastics like has like a good amount of swag to it, and I do not think this transition is up to his normal level of swag. Just falling straight forward from the scale like that. So.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I'm gonna maybe text some of the coaches to see like, "Hey, can we can we try a few more innovative things here to bridge that gap, or can we put them in 2 different areas of the routine?" You know, Michigan actually has some gymnasts starting their scale at the very beginning of the routine, which is different from most people. Most people are doing it right before the final pass. So, like, maybe break them up, maybe don't put them right next to each other. I don't know, but I just, like, when I saw it, I actually laughed because I was like, "Did he fall?" And then he did it again on day 2, and I was like, "Oh, no, this is actually, like, purposeful." So, anywho, at the end of day 1, Riley Loos was in the lead with an 80.4, followed by Frederick Richard with a 79.9, and then Taylor Burkhart was in 3rd with a 79.75. So, we get to day 2. Colt Walker starts on high bar, which I was a little nervous about because on day 1, he had a big fall. I actually thought maybe he should have been checked out for concussion protocol, it was that big of a fall. But he started day 1 or day 2 much better. It was a gorgeous routine, actually. Right now, he's got some sort of lower limb injury that he's dealing with, so he only did a flyaway for his dismount. But overall, the day started much better. Talking about Fred's uniform, there was a little bit of a difference. So, can you tell us the difference between day 1 and day 2?
Yeah, he was wearing like tights or leggings, whichever you prefer to call them, underneath his shorts as part of his new uniform, which of course as like supposedly a movement away from tights, putting on the tights, people had feelings about that. But they were white day 1, which a lot of people and probably myself included thought clashed a little bit. And day 2, he switched to like this, darker shade of blue that matched his Michigan uniform. And it looked for much smoother to me, like in terms of body line. But I was a little surprised he could get away with it because like those darker shades of colors on your legs are typically not allowed because they make like the shadows and the coloring make it difficult for judges to discern knee bend in the course of your elements. So when I saw the navy blue, I was like, okay, this looks better. And then I was like, I'm like, like, I guess if you're already getting a deduction, like, so be it. But I was surprised he was allowed to get away with it.
Yeah, that was a question that I had as well, was right, the code of points specifically states that you can't wear, like, black or dark blue pants and these sort of things, and when I saw the leggings, I thought that they were forbidden. I didn't think it was just the 3/10 deduction, so I am curious what feedback he's gonna get. So Frederick in one of his videos was saying that he had talked to Butch Zunich, who is the US representative on the men's technical committee in the FIG. And I'm really curious to know if Butch will share like what is the actual ruling on these leggings? Are they too dark? And do they hinder the judges from being able to see like the appropriate knee bends and angles that they need to see to differentiate between great and good and bad routines?
Yeah, another reason I was surprised and the reason I was looking down real quick is because my teammate who's there competing this weekend, before he arrived, William and Mary is green and gold. And our uniform is a brighter green. And so are the pants that match. Although we have like the NCAA has its own rules for colors of pants, and them being none, you can pretty much wear whatever. And they told him that he would have to wear like our old gray pants because the green would be too dark. But the tank was fine. And so when I saw Fred was wearing the navy blue, I was like, oh, that like means the exact opposite next to each other like that. I wonder what happened. But Zachary ended up being allowed to wear the green pants. So so confused is the only thing I got.
Interesting. I will follow up with the FIG Men's Technical Committee to get an answer about this, because I think it is unclear not only to the two of us, but also to several other people in the community as well. Now, speaking of gymnastics, that was a little bit confusing. I know that you had some thoughts about high bar and some things that we weren't seeing, and you had thought maybe we might see more like quasts or rebalcos. And can you explain why you were surprised about this?
Yeah, so this current code, they really opened up and loosened the reins on these angled requirements on high bar, but for specific elements, generally being the long hang elements that you have to fully let go of the bar for. So like your quast, which is like a full, like a hopping full turn over the bar, and rebalco, which is same skill, but with an extra half, either to mixed grip or to L grip. Um, like those skills have a super wide range now for which you can complete them without deduction, and you can catch them at like darn near horizontal and still get like full credit and like come out net positive on the skill. So I would have thought we were seeing more quast rebalco skills, but we really didn't see any more than we saw last code. That could be because they just came back into fashion after people stopped teaching them for so long. Like people haven't caught up. Quast and rebalco are also admittedly spooky skills. All of my friends who work on them, like you can hear it from across the gym, because they like will, you know, chirp and like scream while they're trying it mid turn. But shout
That's
out Taylor
terrifying.
Burkhart. Oh yeah, it's terrifying to watch because they have good reason to scream. Like they'll turn at the wrong time and they'll have like a single hand on the bar. Their body's at like a 45, not even hanging straight down. But oh yeah, shout out Taylor Burkhart though, because not only did he do a rebalco, he did Stalder immediately into rebalco, and that is, in my
And
opinion, one of
his
the steeziest skills on high bar. I love it; it's gorgeous.
and his often finish like on top of the bar. I think I saw him at, was it Rocky Mountain Open I was at earlier, and I was like, no one finishes that skill that close to on top of the bar. Like typically they're like finishing at 90 degrees, hoping that they even get credit for the skill. Oh my goodness. A couple other highlights from day 2. So we talked about Cam Nelson's floor routine. So on day 2, he did end up taking out the triple pike. And also, did you see the end of his so he just like he finished his tumbling and then just like went out of bounds for no reason. Like I don't, was there a ghost? Like I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
He transitioned backwards, like he tumbled like almost into the corner because he was, I mean, he did a full twisting double layout and he needed space because he does a like a 2.5 punch lay as a side pass, which is crazy in itself. And he needs space for that, so he like transitioned backwards into the side a little bit, but clearly, just like with everything that was going on, he did not look down at where his heels were, because he has his heels both like on the line slightly over them. And I looked at that and I was like, dude, are they going to take it? And then I saw the judge in the back whip that yellow flag straight into the air. And I was like, that stinks. That is the worst.
I know. I gymnastics is for comedy for sure. And this was one of those moments that I had a good chuckle at, because there was just no reason to go out of bounds. Some other moments I think we need to talk about was the pommel horse, the battle pommel horse. So we have these 4 guys coming in who we thought all could make national team, who were going to fight for this spot, especially with Steven Edorosik not being there. And day 1, everyone hit. I would say Paddy, who was the favorite, did not have the best day. He was in 4th out of the 4 after day 1. And then day 2, Parker Thaxton and Ignacio Yockers both fell. So we knew it was going to come down to probably Patty or Brandon Ding of Illinois. And I was a little surprised at the order that it came out. So Brandon Ding ended up coming out on top. And so I'm going to throw this question to you as someone who's still working with gymnastics team, as a former men's gymnast themselves. If I look at those 2 routines, the day 2 routines, Patty's routine is starting from a 5'9", and Brandon's routine is starting from a 5'6". There look like there are more deductions in Brandon's routine to me, and he's starting from a lower D score, but he's still scoring higher. So what have I missed?
Yeah. This code, they got rid of they increased the penalty for like circle extension by removing the option to have a hollow circle. And I think that like emphasis on hip angle in circle might have been the distinguishing factor. Brandon has a gorgeous swing to the point where he's almost swinging in like a full arch. And so when he breaks form, it doesn't tend to be a break in his hips, more so his legs and or toes. And Patty, who also has, a gorgeous circle, his is, technically air quotes closer to what would a hollow circle would be. And so when he breaks form, he does tend to close those hips. At least that is what happened out of his zone flop tonight. He did the triple Russian. He kicks the horse a little bit, and in order to save it, he does this real pike circle that he probably got, hammered on because he hit the horse, and then he broke his hip angle. And then later in the routine, he goes for his Balinki, and he gets a little off. In order to save it, he breaks hip angle again. And if I had to guess, that would be what happens. I'm not confident I would have judged the routines that way either. But I mean, there's a reason I guess I'm at home and they're on the floor maybe.
Yeah, I think it was particularly shocking because throughout the NCAA season, he certainly has been getting credit for or not being deducted for those circles in the NCAA. And a lot of the NCAA judges are FIG judges. And so seeing those scores it was shocking to me. So then I'll throw this question back to you. So if that is in fact the reason why the score was so much lower, how difficult is it to change that position, right? If you've been doing it that way your entire life and it's always been given credit.
Extraordinarily. Dude, I've been trying to fix my circle for the past 20 years. I don't mean this to be a slight. I feel like there's a pretty stark difference in the way pommel horse is judged in the US versus internationally. Like the things the judges tend to look for here, like skew is huge here. It's like
huge here.
Skew is huge in the US and no one judges it anywhere else.
And for those who are maybe like newer to men's gymnastics, skew would be if you're doing like a travel element, like a Magyar, a Shervato, where your hips are directly in line with the pommel horse, but you're turned off to one side. There's an angle. That's what they're referring to as the skew.
Yeah, and it's like a super, like once you start looking for it, it's easier to see, but it's like the definition of skew is also very heavily debated because as you just said, you're looking at hips. Some judges look at hands and some judges look at shoulders. And so you can have your hands even and have your shoulders not, or your hips not. And all three permeations of that. So it's like super weird because we care a lot about it here and it does not seem to be as important in other countries. So like if he were to go out, so if it was a hip angle thing and then he went to another country, an international meet and, hit for like a 9.3 E score, I would not be super surprised.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I really appreciate your clarification there. And I'll be interested to see, and we'll talk about this in just a minute. I do think that they probably will put Patty on national team, and I'll get into what, even though he finished second, I'll get into why I think he's going to probably end up making it. And I'm curious to see if he does this routine, like doesn't make any changes, but does this routine at, let's say, Baku World Cup, because my guess is they probably would send him to a World Cup pretty quickly. Is he going to get judged the same? Because, the judges are still figuring out this code. And I have spoken to multiple judges who took the test and they felt like the execution part of the judging test this time was really unclear. And I think that they're still getting clarity on how skills are getting evaluated in this code of points. So that's something that we're just going to be watching for the next little bit. Can you talk to me a little bit about the winner, Riley Loos, and just like, what were your expectations for him coming in? Because I didn't have any expectations for him coming in. And did he surprise you in any way?
Like, yeah. So, yes, I was surprised pleasantly, and not because I was expecting worse, but just like it was just really fun to watch. I was excited. I had the opportunity to talk with Riley actually recently, like not to like plug my own podcast or whatever, but I recently started one with one of my friends where we're interviewing athletes, and Riley was our first guest, and this was like 2 weeks ago. And so I asked him, what his daily schedule looks like, and he works like a gajillion jobs, and he practices for like 5-6 hours a day. And I asked him about like how he was feeling and like his shoulder health, and his shoulders sounded like they were literally held together by tape, is what he said. And so had he had things not gone super smooth, I would have been like, yeah, that checks out. If he's got a lot on his plate, and and his shoulders are Swiss cheese, so on. And then he showed up and showed out. I mean, he first place, first day, and second. I was really happy to see him do so well. I really like his gymnastics. I've always felt like a kinship to it because we have like similar skill choices in rings especially. And no, it's fun. He does a lot of exciting stuff. The handspring Randy on vault, his entire ring set, and so
Yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised because a lot of athletes, when they don't, like, he didn't make it to Olympic trials last year. And so when athletes choose to continue, it's usually for one of two reasons. It's either because they've got this new renewed energy and their motivation is super high, or it's because they're kind of lost and don't know what else to do because their identity has been as a gymnast for their entire life. And so they just keep going. And I wasn't really sure because we haven't seen it. Like, he hasn't been posting things. I had no idea what to expect. And I was really pleasantly surprised to see how steady he was. And yeah, congratulations to him for winning. And then so he won the all around. Frederick Richard got second, and Taylor Christopoulos of Nebraska snuck in there at the very last minute. I thought it was going to be Taylor Burkhart, but Taylor C is the one who actually ended up getting that title. And as far as event winners, Riley Loos also won floor exercise and still rings. And then Brandon Ding won pommel horse. Nardi Brady won vault, which he's a junior, won the senior ranks. Incredible. Colt Walker won parallel bars. And then Krewbold of Michigan won high bar. So breaking news, we did just have the national team selected. So we are going to actually go through who our predictions were before to see how close to right we were. So we did know 4 people immediately after Winter Cup. So Riley Loos, Taylor Christopoulos, Taylor Burkhart, and Alex Natache were all added to the senior national team. So that's in addition to the 5 Olympians, the 2 traveling Olympic alternates, plus the 4 senior development team members, which left, I believe, 5 spots. So the people I thought were going to make the senior national team were Patrick Hoops, Colt Walker, June Iwe, Alex Diab, and Brandon Ding. And I thought maybe Krewbold, he was an event winner. I wasn't sure that if they would take 3 pommel horse specialists, but my thought was Patty Hoops has a higher difficulty score than Brandon, and they have been harping D score nonstop for ages. And I was like, there's no way they're not going to take him. Like, there's just no way. But it's really hard to take the number 2 guy and not take the number 1 guy. So then I was like, okay, I think that they will take Brandon Dang. But if they did it this way, then they would end up leaving off Krewbold, who won high bar. And I would be really disappointed by this because Crew I believe it was 2023 national championships. Crew had a higher point total than some of the athletes that they ended up putting on national team, and they overlooked him. And I remember I was so upset by this. And I felt like maybe that they were going to overlook him again, but I was really, really, really rooting for him. So let's go down. We're going to scroll down. We're going to see who they actually put on national team. This is literally the first time we're seeing it. So, okay, Brandon Dang, Alex Diab, Patty Hoops, June Iwa, and Colt Walker. Oh, and Donnell Wittenberg as a senior injured reserve. Oh my gosh, we got it right. Christian, we're so good at this.
Yeah, that's impressive.
I'm really impressed by that, actually.
That's crazy.
Okay. I am actually really let's talk about the crew and the fuzzy thing, right? So I think the two who are probably going to be most upset out of this situation is Crew Bold and Fuzzy Bennett. So Crew won high bar. So I think to be taken over athletes who didn't win. So the two athletes who didn't win who were named over him were Alex Diab on still ring. So Alex got the same score as Riley Loos, but he lost out on the E-score tiebreak. And then Patty Hoops was also second. I am really disappointed for him, but I also kind of get it, because if you're looking for people, if you looked at the scores from Cottubs World Cup, right? We just had our very first World Cup. Patty's pommel horse score and Alex's still ring scores are more competitive to what we saw in Cottbus than Crew's high bar score. But what about you? What is your opinion? Would you just take the event winners, or would you take the people who are maybe more competitive?
Yeah, I guess I don't know how the number of slots works. I'm not especially familiar with that system. But if I mean it in a world where if there is space, I would like to see that all of the event winners make the national team.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it feels very similar to the rule that USAG came up with where the all-arounder had to meet a certain level D score to automatically clinch their spot on national team. And I really didn't like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I don't like it because I think just winning the event in itself means a lot, and you can only compete against who you can compete against, right? Look at the high bar final at the Olympic Games.
It was terrible.
It was awful because everyone fell, right? And I would say do you say the wrong person won just because everyone else fell? I don't. No, it's who you compete against. And so I guess I do feel like Crew has been overlooked twice now, which I find extremely frustrating as someone who's very justice oriented. But I don't feel like this was I also don't feel like that there was any egregious error made in the team selection is kind of ultimately where I fall. A little update that we got after we finished recording this podcast is that Crew Bold's coach sent and publicly posted the directive that the selection committee was supposed to be following during their discretionary selection. And his reading of that directive is that the event winners should have been considered first for the team before looking at event D scores and so on and so forth. So from his perspective, Crew Bold and Colt Walker should have been the first two discretionary athletes selected, and then the other three spots should have looked at D score or prior international competition results. I will be following up with USA Gymnastics to see how they interpreted the discretionary criteria for this competition, and we'll update you when we have a better answer.
Yeah, I see the internal consistency with the argument. I just also, of course, within in the nuances, think that it may not be the most competitive score and or start value or whatever internationally, and this is our national team. But unfortunately, if he was the best one, it sounds like he's just about the best shot, right?
Yeah. Well, and Yeah, gosh, that's a hard place to be.
Yeah.
I I feel for him. I don't feel like that this decision was as bad as an injustice as I feel as him being left off in 2023. But I do wish that they were consistent in taking event winners. I really do. Just following up on all of this, we did also get the World Cup assignment. So big thank you to USA Gymnastics for getting this out the same night as the competition. This really helps us out. So going to Baku World Cup are Alex Diab, Brandon Dang, and Patty Hoops. And then to Antalya World Cup, which if you've never been to Antalya, it is like one of the most beautiful places on earth. That is definitely a World Cup to go to. You have like the Mediterranean like esque views with the beaches and the mountains, and it's absolutely stunning. So going there are Brandon Dang, Asher Hong, and Patty Hoops. Wow. So Brandon and Patty are going to be like roommates together for a couple events. To the Osijek World Cup is Alex Diab, June Iwe, and Riley Loos. Cairo World Cup is Alex Diab, Brandon Dang, and Patty Hoops. DTV Challenge Cup in Germany is Taylor Christopoulos, June Iwe, Riley Loos, Kai Uemura, and Colt Walker. And then the Mixed Challenge Cup is going to be Karen Mandava and Alex Natache. Wow. So that's a really good mix of athletes. And I guess the only Olympian going is Asher Hong to Antalya World Cup. So very interesting. They also did name the junior team for the Junior DTB Cup, which was Dante Reeve, Maxime Khan, Dania Lakin, Nathan Roman, Nardi Brady with Kiefer Hong as the alternate. Just to wrap up here, the World Cup series did start this past weekend in Cottbus. We're going to just talk about maybe like one or two routines that really stood out for us. For me, the king is back. Artur Dovtian of Armenia. This man is a stick machine. Holy cow. I have never seen a more consistent athlete in my entire life. He the man like never failed. Like 2023 was just like a wash. Every other time he is just master of this event. So he looks like he's back to his 2022 form. He did his Dragulescu stuck right down the middle, as is always expected. If you're new to the Coda points this year, they've added in a stick bonus. So he got a stick bonus for not just his first vault, but also his second vault, his handspring Randy, which was a little bit off to the left, but he also stuck that cold, 14.9 average, which I'm kind of like, okay, I'm going to wait to see what Zojin Yuan does on parallel bars, but I'm kind of like, I don't know, maybe vault's going to go back to being the highest scoring event again.
Yeah, I mean, if he keeps vaulting like that, it's totally possible. I mean, it's getting to the point where he sticks these, and I'm like, and then what? I need him to upgrade. All right, I'm more surprised when he doesn't stick. All right, I want the what's it, the Yang Haksung, the
Yeah.
triple full. I could be about it for a handspring triple full. That's clouded. That is super cool.
But gosh, there is nothing more satisfying than that. Like you expect, it was like Alan Bauer doing vault. Like you expect the stick, they deliver the stick. Like
yeah, exactly.
So crazy. So that was my routine from Cottbus. What was the routine that really caught your eye from Cottbus?
For me, it was Courtney Tulloch on rings. He unveiled this massive 16.0 D score on rings. And as I was saying earlier, I literally think that's going to be like the highest D score on rings. Like rings, because you have to break up your strength elements with swing, and there are only so many swing elements, and they are like all about the same value, unless you're crazy like Yuhao and you do the laid out Kazogi. Then like mathematically you get kind of like locked into a certain range of start values, and the only way to push that really, because like all these guys are so strong, they can do E's and F's for their whole routines. Right. So the only way you can differentiate yourself now is with those harder dismounts. And there's like a reason most people don't do a triple back dismount on rings. It's like really hard. And you cowboy, and like even if you do land it, it's hard to minimize the steps that you're taking. And Courtney, like, he almost stuck it like both days. It was ridiculous. His knees are almost perfectly together. I was unfamiliar with his game. I had no clue that he was going to do something like that. It was really cool, set from start to finish. I will say, he mounted with like a butterfly to Victorian, which might be his own skill now that I think about it. But and I thought the credit on that might have been a little questionable, but the rest of the set was fantastic. So that was really cool. Like, now that you get the 7/10 for the skill and the 7/10 for the dismount, like, it's
Right.
just you're just not going to catch someone who's doing all E's and F's and you're doing a double and they're doing a triple. I mean, they've got a built-in 4/10 over you, so they can, you know, you can take a 3 and still come out ahead of you. And then not even that, if he's going to continue landing like he does, he'll stick it and he'll have 4/10 for the skill and then an additional 1 for the stick. So
Yeah, I was talking to Sam Oldham about Courtney Tulloch, and he said that he felt because Courtney had recently become a dad, like, he had this renewed energy for his daughter to see him. And he said it just provides, like, Oldham has also recently become a dad within the last year. And so that really does provide this new motivation that you didn't previously have. And Courtney, I think, maybe did suffer an injury sometime during training because he did withdraw from finals. So he didn't actually compete there, but he did compete in qualifications. So I hope that we do get to see this ring routine again throughout the season, because I just hope and wish all good things for Courtney moving forward. So the 6 event winners were Milad Karimi of Kazakhstan on floor, Xiao Yujan of Chinese Taipei or Taiwan on pommel horse, Ban Davtian of Armenia got the rings title, Artur Davtian of Armenia got the vault title, and then the Japanese took all of the bars. So Sugimoto Kaito got the parallel bar title, and then Kawakami Shohei got the high bar title. So thank you again so much to Christian. I know that you do have a new podcast, which you mentioned briefly earlier. Where can people find you and learn more about you and the work that you're doing to promote men's gymnastics?
yeah, so it's called PODNASTICS. It is on Spotify, it is on YouTube, and we're working on Apple Podcasts as well. We have an Instagram account, so that's where you'll see like everything we post. And it's just this attempt to spread awareness about, you know, men's gymnastics as well as women's gymnastics, and more so give like the athletes a chance to like tell their story and learn a little bit more about them. So it's a mix of like cool questions about their social lives, their gymnastics, and whatever fun stuff we find along the way.
Amazing. So for those of you listening, if you would like to help bring more live men's gymnastics coverage to life, please consider donating. A massive thank you to Julie for your donation this week, which will help cover 2 nights of housing at the NCAA championships for us. We are almost entirely listener supported, so these donations do make a huge difference in producing content for each of you. If you would like to donate, the PayPal link is in every show note and at the bottom of every article on neutraldeductions.com. If you have any questions, comments, or insider tips, you can email us at neutraldeductions@gmail.com. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.